We built the first towns in Oklahoma. We revived our schools and newspapers. We built new farms and began to thrive. These were not our ancestral lands, but Andrew Jackson had promised that finally this land would be forever secured and guaranteed to us.
No political communities can be formed in that extensive region except those which are established by the Indians themselves. A barrier has thus been raised for their protection against the encroachment of our citizens. Andrew Jackson.
People are shocked that in the 1840s that most of these tribes were running our own school systems, not only for men, but school systems for the education of women. And that we were printing our own newspapers in Cherokee and in English. And in the 1840s, there were still people in this country debating the issue of whether we had souls or whether we were human.
We should have known that there was no security on the prairie. Eventually, the settlers caught up with us. In 1887, just 50 years after the Trail of Tears, the most well-meaning humanitarians and the most crass land speculators created an unholy alliance to steal our new nations and destroy, once and for all, our tribal identities. It came to be known as the Allotment Act. The idea was painfully simple. Subdivide our tribal lands into small parcels of 40 to 160 acres and assign one parcel to each family. Put the rest of the lands, tens of millions of acres which we held in common, on the market and open them up for white settlement. The Oklahoma land rush was on. In one brief, blinding flash, tribes throughout the United States lost their land.
The Indian must be imbued with the exalting egotism of American civilization, so that he will say I instead of we, and this is mine instead of this is ours. J.D.C. Atkins, Commissioner of Indian Affairs.
What happened to us at the turn of the century and the loss of land when our land was divided out in individual allotments had a profound, irreversible effect on our people, more profound than the closing of schools or courthouses or anything. When we stopped viewing land ownership in common and viewing ourselves in relation to owning the land in common, it profoundly altered our sense of community and our social structure, and so that had a tremendous impact on our people, and we can never go back.
The central component of the traditional order, the ceremonial ground, was not protected from the allotment process. So that today you have probably at least 30 ceremonial grounds that are out there on, private land generally.
Alone and spread out on the land, without citizenship or the protection of old treaties, we had almost no chance of survival. In fact, the whole idea was to strip away our tribal identities and remold us into small family farmers.
I remember my grandfather saying one time that the Indians wanted to maintain the tribal domain, but to his perception, it was all lost anyway. It wouldn't have done any good. They were corrupted by a mentality that the white people finally, or the federal policies and the white social pressures and so on, finally created in them, that they took away this regard that these Muskogee people had for the group, and they were on the road to becoming individualists.